Does BYU actually have a shot to pull the upset as big double-digit underdogs against Texas Tech? I'm going to tell you they absolutely do, but there's one thing that needs to happen. And it may sound easy if I say, hey, there's one thing, but no. No, it is not easy. It might be a simple list, like, hey, here's the big thing, but it's not an easy thing to do against Texas Tech. There are a lot of things I'm looking at in this game if I'm thinking about the biggest factors in this game. One, I'm going to start with I am very intrigued by what LJ Martin is going to actually be able to give BYU in this game. LJ Martin, for the uninformed, is the Big 12's leading rusher still after missing a good chunk of the Iowa State game. He got knocked out early. His pads were off. The rumor I saw going around at the time was like a collarbone issue. Now it seems like more. I've seen some people speculating about AC joint, which is definitely, that's something you can play through more. It's painful, but it is not like a broken collarbone. Either way, earlier this week, like Pete Thamel reported, LJ Martin would play. He's listed as probable on the injury report. Aaron Roderick, BYU offensive coordinator, said earlier this week he'd be available, but didn't go much further on that as far as like how available, how much is he going to play. Look, BYU needs to find some way to run the ball, and that is not easy. Not easy. Texas Tech is literally the best run defense in the country. They are giving up 74 yards per game. The one silver lining in that, I would say, is that BYU does have the film of the K-State Texas Tech game. K-State rushed for 126 yards. That's easily the most that anybody's put up on Tech this year. 88 of it came from the quarterback position with Avery Johnson. So if you're going to run the ball, it does definitely need to start with Bear Bachmeier. He is going to have to make plays. And I know he was like gimpy and looking beat up by the end of the Iowa State game because so much was put on his shoulders. And there's been talk from Sataki and Roderick this season about like, hey, we can't, we got to protect Bear a little bit. He's a thick, sturdy guy. He might be a centaur, but like we can't run him 30 times a game. If you're going to beat Texas Tech, he's going to have to take some hits. He's going to have to run the ball quite a bit. He's going to have to make plays. But you need your running backs as much as possible. And nothing against Preston Rex, man, but I don't think that's going to be enough to shoulder the load against this run defense. Like K-State does not have a good backfield without Dylan Edwards. Full stop. But man, it looked real bad against Texas Tech. Like Joe Jackson had no real chance to do anything. It was basically all Avery Johnson generating the run game there. So LJ Martin, though, different story. That's a dude. That's a difference maker. He's got 500-yard games this year. Like that's somebody that could make a dent. And the importance of having a run game, you might just say, well, John, if they're the best run defense, then just figure out how to throw the ball. Well, you can't be one-dimensional against Texas Tech and expect to have a lot of success, because if you are, those pass rushers are just going to pin their ears back, and that is not what you want. That is not what you want. David Bailey and Romello Height are the best edge rushing pair in the country. They've combined for 17 sacks. Do you want a piece of that? Like Romello Height is the lesser of the two, I guess. If you're looking at overall stats anyway, he is. And he's the guy, if you saw the highlight from last week, that came and got Avery Johnson from behind and whacked the ball loose. Like they're menaces, man. They are menaces. That turned into a touchdown, by the way. Part of why the game got so out of hand at the end of the game. You cannot allow them to just know every single down that you are about to pass the ball. And so you need some semblance of a running game. I think the other thing a running game really helps out for BYU with is it just kind of keeps the possessions lower, keeps Tech's offense off the field. You got to avoid getting beaten down. And that's really, if we're talking about my one big thing, man, my one big thing is you have to handle the physicality of Texas Tech for an entire 60-minute football game. And that is what we've really yet to see happen outside of Arizona State. But Arizona State had the advantage of playing from in front because Texas Tech's offense could not get it figured out with Will Hammond that game. If Baron Morton is there, Texas Tech's offense is much more consistent. They may struggle finishing drives. They may still be prone to a turnover or two, but it's not going to be just lifeless like it was for 3 quarters in Tempe in that game. You're not going to get that in all likelihood, even if you have a great defense, which I think BYU does have a great defense. So that's the thing. Can you handle it for 60 minutes? Utah did a pretty good job of being at least neutral in the physicality department with Texas Tech for 3 quarters, and then it just exploded on them in the fourth. Like they couldn't hold up for 60 minutes with that. They wound up losing in blowout fashion. K-State couldn't handle it into the fourth quarter. Eventually fell behind by 2 scores in the second half. Tech knew they had to pass it in the fourth quarter. They couldn't handle the physicality at that point. Tech's defensive line just demolished them. And it turned into a blowout. That's what BYU is going to have to do. Can they do it? I think it'll be much easier if LJ Martin can at least give you like 10 plus carries. You've got a better chance. You need some sustained drives. This could be, this sets up to be like Bear Bachmeier Heisman performance, right? If he wins this game and he's the guy making plays and everybody knows about the Tech defense and what they've been, this could be a Heisman moment type of thing for Bear Bachmeier. I think this is an entirely different deal than going up against an Iowa State defense that was missing about half of its starters 2 weeks ago. But maybe he's ready. He continues to ascend every single week and seems to me like he's a transcended talent. It's just that's another step. That is definitely another step. The other thing I would really mention here about BYU that I would be very concerned about if I were a Cougar fan is falling into an early hole. Because what did I just say about when Tech knows that you're passing and those guys can just pin their ears back? They don't have to blitz. They just rush 4 and let 2 NFL guys go to work on you on the edges. Godspeed to your tackles. BYU's had a penchant for falling behind on the road, particularly early or just slow starts in general, right? Like in Boulder, they're down 14-0. I would highly suggest not falling behind 14-0 and then feeling like you got to really pass the ball all the time in this game in Lubbock with a very partisan, fired up crowd, maybe a little extra juice because they know they can't throw their tortillas. They're going to be all over you. That's a nightmare. East Carolina, even that game, it's 6-3 BYU into the final minute of the first half, and ECU's in the red zone. Now, I know that game turned around on an interception, but that was a slow start on the road for BYU once again. How about Iowa State? Down 17-7, down 24-10. They looked pretty dead in the water in the first half, I thought, in Ames, too. These are things I would not suggest doing if I were BYU in this game, because I think that just complicates things. I think there are certain teams, shout out to my guy Derek Young on the 3 Mile podcast who has said this. I think there are certain teams where like game script matter more than others. And when you're playing Texas Tech, game script matters a lot more than with certain other teams because of their specific talents on defense and the hole that they can put you in if you get in a position where you have to pass the ball. It just felt, watching that K-State game last week, it was like once it got to the fourth quarter, K-State knew they had to pass. There was a total feeling of inevitability. You could completely, it was like, they're not. K-State's not moving the ball consistently against this. You got no shot at that point. So, look, I kind of foresee this going a similar route to the Utah game. I think BYU will come up with some ways to move the ball and get creative on offense. I think the K-State film will help them with that. As much crap as Matt Wells takes as K-State's offensive coordinator, I thought he actually did a very good job for the most part on Saturday at finding a way. Like I said, nobody had run the ball on Tech all year. They're averaging, going into the game, it was like 65 yards per game given up on the ground. K-State ran for 126. Avery Johnson had 2 long rushing touchdowns. He had 88 rushing yards on them. If not for drops and fumbles from K-State pass catchers at tight end and receiver, the offense really was moving the ball, and K-State's probably up double digits in the first quarter, if not for that. Like, there were some ways that K-State found to move the football. I think BYU is probably better equipped than K-State, obviously, to move the ball, especially if they have a healthy LJ Martin. I think they can game plan their way into hanging around, but I do feel like in the fourth quarter, it'll be another case of Tech overpowering, being able to get their pass rush really supremely involved. And it's just hard to look at everything Texas Tech has. I mean, I didn't even mention Jacob Rodriguez really in this preview. I mean, he forced 2 fumbles. He's forced 7 on the year. He forced 2 fumbles last week in Manhattan, 7 on the season, leads the country. And one of them, yes, Jace Brown, I don't think was really ready for it or paying attention. The other one, Garrett Oakley, K-State, he's a tight end, right? That's not a receiver. That's a tight end covering the ball with 2 hands. He knew it was coming and covered the ball with 2 hands, and Jacob Rodriguez still punched that thing out. Like, he is an animal in the middle of that defense. Tech is number 5 in the country in scoring defense, number 1 in rush defense, number 1 in the Big 12 in sacks with 28 sacks. They forced 20 turnovers this year. According to PFF, they have 3 of the top 8 players in the country, 3 of the top 8 defensive players in the country. It's daunting. If you ask me for a final score, and look, BYU fans, I'm just going to tell you, I don't feel great about doing this because I did it in the Utah game and was wrong. I predicted a close Utah win, and BYU won the game, and I actually would argue, I mean, yeah, it was a 3-point final margin, but it was 1 pass away to Chase Roberts in the end zone away from, I think, being like a 17-point game. I was very wrong, is the point. I am going to say Texas Tech 34, BYU 20, with a score or 2 in the fourth quarter from Texas Tech sort of just beating on BYU and wearing them down. We have not seen a team, when Texas Tech has had Baron Morton, we have not seen a team go toe-to-toe physically with them for an entire game. That's the way I see it happening. That's a pretty long, extended preview, but I feel like that's deserved for a game of this magnitude in the Big 12, and we'll see. Look, BYU fans, you're free to dunk on me if I am wrong, because I, like many, have been wrong all season about what BYU actually has in these big moments.